I'm 29 years old, and I feel like a failure. This video is going to be a little bit different than my usual kind of stuff. It's going to be raw, unpolished, real talk style, because I've been putting so much effort into all of my content, and it just seems like, just like everything else in my life, the time and effort just doesn't seem to pay off. And it seems like people want to hear the raw, unedited truth from the struggles of someone they can relate to. I say someone you can relate to, but some of my subscribers told me that I'm not chopped enough, I'm not unattractive enough, I'm too fit. No one's going to want to hear a guy with a handsome face complain for 45 minutes in a video. And you might be thinking the same thing looking at me. But what you don't see is the fact that I'm 5'3.5". I've never had a girlfriend. I'm still a virgin. I make about $1,600 a month in Northern California, where it's impossible to survive on that. Still living in my childhood room, approaching the age of 30. And I may have gotten lucky in the face department, but in every other aspect of life, and you'll come to find out, as I discuss later on in this video, it has just been one barrage of misfortune after another, to the point where I'm starting to think that God or the universe is dead set and determined to make sure that I fail at everything I do. Now, you might see some cuts here and there, because the truth is I suffer from some pretty severe depression and ADHD, and I oftentimes just sit there and stare at the sky for a whole minute straight, forgetting my vocabulary terms, getting lost in what I was going to say. If you've seen my previous content, you might think, oh, wow, he's so articulate. The truth is, I'm not articulate. I'm just good at editing out all the embarrassing ums and uhs and likes and pauses. So we'll see how this goes. If you're approaching your late 20s, or you're the same age as me or getting close, you'll know that 29 is a pretty tough age. It's the last year of your 20s, and it's the time when you realize that your youth, your 20s, your best time of your life, supposedly, is almost up, and the minutes are ticking by faster and faster. Just last night, I was going on Instagram and TikTok because I run a few accounts. I don't use it for fun. I use it for content creation and business. Just reading through my comments, looking over, writing messages to people, etc. And just in an instant, 20 minutes went by. And that just seems to happen more and more and more. And getting to the point where I'm staying up super late every night because I can't fit all the things I need to do into one day. You might think, oh, well, Chadlet Maxing, why do you think you're a failure? You might be in your late 20s, or you might remember being in your late 20s if you're older. And a lot of us feel like failures for different reasons. Some people only have themselves to blame. They screwed around throughout their 20s. They partied. They did a ton of drugs. They had free, loose sex with whoever they could think of. They didn't apply themselves. They didn't work hard. They didn't try to fit into a career that had potential and a pathway to advancement. They reach 30. They have an existential crisis, quarter life, midlife crisis over it. But they realize that the reason they're in the position they are is because they could have tried harder. They could have applied themselves. But in my situation, it's quite the opposite. And that makes it all the worse, because I worked my ass off ever since I was 21 years old. I really turned things around in college. I went from just not really trying that hard, getting drunk all the time, smoking weed all the time, to really just deciding to take things very seriously. Went from like a 3.0 GPA to a 4.0 GPA, graduated college. I got lucky. That was the only time I ever got lucky in my life. Met the right person at the right time, got into an industry that was in 2019, very up and coming in this area. I got a nice office position. I was able to use that to prove myself, to try and show everyone what I was capable of. I remember back then I had all the energy in the world. It felt like I could conquer the world. I just felt virile and potent. like a man should feel, just ready to go out there and make his way in society, do great things, change the world. And I had a plan. And not only that, but I actually had strengthened a spiritual relationship with God. And, a lot of people don't believe in God or whatever, but when I was a teenager, see, I had grown up going to church and all that stuff. And I distanced myself from it as a teenager because I became so insecure about my height that I started to blame God for everything. I hated my existence. I hated the universe. And once I reached that point in my life where everything started to look like it was going up, in 2019 when I got that job, and that was when the relationship started to come back. And I put full faith in God. And I was like, you know what? I am going to work as hard as I possibly can, do as much as I can to achieve great things in life. And I know that if I do that, I can have faith that God has a plan for me and a path for me and will open up the right doors at the right time. And if my life has a purpose, good things will happen as long as I try my best. As you all know, less than a year later, we had the lockdowns. I was fortunate enough to be able to work from home. And throughout the next year, I realized that all that going above and beyond and trying my hardest, it was not only not appreciated, but it was actually viewed as a threat by everyone else around me, all my coworkers. I became a target for accusations, just not appreciated at all. And it really started to get to me. And fortunately, working from home opened up the door for me to step back in placing all my effort in my office job instead of, offering to do extra Excel programs for people to help the sales team or whatever. Instead of doing that, just do my basic job, quiet quit, do the bare minimum, and spend the rest of my time building my own business. And I thought, this is the door that God was opening up for me, because I'm going to take all that I've learned working in the sales and marketing department of this startup and use it to build my own brand of plant medicine. And the funny thing is about the age of 29 is that there was this woman working there. She was the head of supply chain operations. She worked in the factory type area where all the production took place and whatnot. And I thought her job was so cool. And she was 29 years old when I was there, and I was 23. And I really admired her. And I ended up working alongside her a lot of the time in a project group. Me, her, and this other older guy in his mid-40s. And I thought it was really cool that I was getting this experience and kind of shadowing this person that had a job that was a lot like what I would have liked to have in due time. And I think she realized how interested I was in her position, and she saw me as a threat, and she started overcompensating and buying all these textbooks and going above and beyond to get all these new special certifications. And the more I thought of it, the more I realized that she saw me as a threat more than anybody else did. And it makes perfect sense to me because she ended up being the one to constantly accuse me, 6 months later of fucking things up, being complacent, not doing my job right, not caring, etc., when I truly was trying to go above and beyond and do the best I could. And that was when I realized how rough of an age it is to be 29. And it made me even more afraid of reaching that time in my life, because I realized that seeing a young person really rapidly ascending the ranks, or potentially ascending the ranks, because that never happened. They just wanted me for the entry-level position so they could use my youthful energy and exuberance to take advantage of what I could provide for them without providing anything in return or any pathway to advancement. But now that I'm the same age that she was back then, I completely understand how she feels. That job had ground me down to feeling completely cynical about the corporate world. Because at first I thought, okay, this is going to be my opportunity. I'm going to be able to climb the ranks, and then eventually I'll be able to achieve my dreams of using the connections that I've made and the knowledge that I had gained to start my own business in an adjacent industry, which I'll talk about a little later about what my true ultimate goal is. But it turned out that was not going to happen. I actually got laid off in early 2021 not even a year after the lockdown started. And to be honest with you, I was happy about it because it's like, now I don't have to deal with you guys' crap anymore and I can go full time into focusing on my business and I don't have to quit and have a quit on my resume. You know what I mean? So I was pretty happy about that. And I spent the next 6 years up till this point honed in and focused on building my own small business. I started with branding, labels, package materials, sourcing suppliers, figuring out pricing, going to shops and showing them what I potentially was going to have to offer. And that part was the hardest and the most brutal. That's where I got the most rejections, the rejections that made me bitter and jaded. But this new opportunity came along and I was like, okay, this is the opportunity that God was opening up for me. This is my path and my destiny. And I had all the youthful energy of a 1-year-old golden retriever ready to go out and achieve my dreams. And you know what happened? One misfortune after the other. That's what happened. Slowly breaking me down, bit by bit. The first time I think, okay, this is just a one-off, bad things are going to happen. I've got to keep going. I'm going to stay positive. And I was very positive and I had faith. Everyone says, well, the reason you didn't succeed is because you didn't have faith in God or you didn't work hard enough or you should have done this or you should have done that. But I'm telling you that I was 100% positive. I had faith. And if the law of attraction is real, I should have succeeded. But it was one thing after another, piling on and piling on. The universe threw me a bone in 1 in 10 events, enough to convince me to keep going. But after a while, it really got me down. The scary thing about being 29 is, of course, worrying about turning 30. Of course, you're realizing you're running out of time. You're comparing yourself with all of your peers, all the people you know. They might be married, they might have great careers, they might have their own successful businesses. The right thing to happen to them at the right time, and everyone else looks at you and sees your lack of accomplishments. And if you're like me and you know that you really have put your all into things, you know that their judgments are inaccurate. But all people see is the results. And if they aren't seeing results from the work that you've put in, none of it mattered. It's like it never even existed because they just see a lazy, good-for-nothing failure. Now, if you're like me and you worked your ass off throughout your 20s to try and make something good of your life and everything went badly for you, let me know in the comments because I know for a fact that because I've experienced what I've experienced, I know that looks can be deceiving. If someone's down and out on their luck, it's not always because they didn't work hard enough. Bad luck hits people, and if you've never experienced it, then you got no room to speak. Personally, if I got to spend my entirety of my 20s partying it up and having a great time, and I reached this age and was in a similar position as I am now, because that's how my dad was. My dad wasted his 20s in that way. I would kick back after all that and say, man, I had a good time. I may have gone nowhere with my life, but man, I really traded that for a wonderful, wonderful experience in life. But if you sacrificed all of your social avenues, you stopped trying to get a girlfriend, like maybe I could have gotten a girlfriend, probably not because of my height, but maybe I could have. I just got unlucky, never met the right girl at the right time. So when you look at a life like that, where you've sacrificed all joy, all happiness, all for the sake of relentless grinding 7 days a week, and you reach the age of 30 and you have nothing to show for it, there is nothing more demoralizing than that. Because when you hit 30, not only do you realize that your 20s are over, but you're no longer cool in the eyes of the youth. Society no longer sees you as a kid who is part of the new generation and is hip and cool and grouping you in with the young people. No, now they expect you to be a married man with his own place to live and a successful career and a retirement fund. But I know for a fact that I am not part of that category. And I still see myself as someone in their 20s. I relate way more. I'm a zillennial. I'm on the cusp year. I could see myself as a millennial or a Gen Z. And I choose to see myself as Gen Z, not only because I don't want to feel old, but also because I just relate way more to Gen Z. A lot of millennial guys, no offense, I know not all of you are like this, but you've got that sort of outdated, out of touch perspective on society and the world, this naive sort of hippie view that the government just needs to give everybody everything, open up the borders, and the United States needs to just do everything for the whole world, and we should give up everything that we've got for the sake of apologizing for our imperialist history. And Gen Z, growing up experiencing the economy the way it is, society the way it is, not really having the benefits of that imperialist history. And they think, no, f that. Why should we have to pay the price for the benefits that the previous generation reaped? No, you guys can go fuck yourselves and you give up your money. We want to keep our opportunities. We want the quality of life. We want social mobility so that when we work our asses off our whole life like I have, that something actually comes of it. Instead of having empathy for the whole world, I have empathy for people in my generation who have been labeled as privileged, whose lives have been anything but. Generations of the past who got to experience the ability to work hard and own a home, climb the social ladder, and just have freedom and the American dream, acting like we still have all the same privileges and we're just too lazy to take advantage of it, and that we need to be compassionate and empathetic and give it all away to everybody else. Sometimes you got to be a little selfish for the sake of survival, especially when other people just don't seem to get it. So yeah, turning 30 already sucks in the sense of feeling like you're getting older, you're no longer young, your 20s are over. But it sucks even more when you're literally falling behind. And it's one thing to fall behind as a result of your own decisions. It's another thing to fall behind as a result of pure bad luck and how the perceptions of others don't take that into account, especially these spiritualist type people and wealthy gurus who try to blame you. Like anyone who hasn't succeeded in life, it's always their fault because, of course, they succeeded. So, of course, anybody can do it, right? So let's get into the nitty gritty of why I feel like such a failure at the age of 29. Starting out with work, comparison, and financial struggles. So I won't go into detail about every little piece of misfortune that occurred to me over the 6 years of trying to build my business. But, the first thing that happened was I spent $1,300 and a month of my time working full-time every day designing this website with WordPress, because the type of business that I run, it can't be done with Squarespace or anything like that. It took a lot of time, a lot of money, and learning a lot of new skills. And I had been hyping up my LinkedIn audience for like 6 months at that point about this business that I was building up. And it seemed like everyone was hyped for me. I was getting like 100 likes on every post. It was awesome. Then I launched the website, and what happened? Not a single order. Only my best online friend placed an order. And that was the only order I got like that whole summer. And it just threw me for a loop. Like, what the hell? That was May of 2021. Then later on that summer, the worst possible thing I could have ever imagined happening happened. So I had an original supplier of my product, and these people, it was kind of a loose thing. They weren't really super professional, but that's the way this industry is. It's a lot like the cannabis industry. So it was my second big shipment that I had ordered from them, $8,000 worth. And it was a special strain, something that they had sent me a sample of, and I thought it was amazing. And I didn't have space in my storage area to take in this new product because they said it was time sensitive to get this new stuff. So I said, okay, I'd like you to keep it there for me for a month or so, and then I'll let you know when I'm ready for you to send it over." So what happened is I sent him the money, and then few months later, it was August, early August. I tried to check in, and I kept getting ghosted. After like 10 voicemails being left, 10 messages being sent over the course of like 3 weeks, I came to realize that I had lost $8,000, and these people had, I guess, relapsed on their crack addiction and gone and ran off with my money. And that was the money that I had worked hard for and saved from my job. So I had to learn a new skill, trying to sue somebody. So the rest of that entire fall season, instead of trying to work to build my business up and grow things like I wanted to, I had to focus on figuring out how to sue someone that lived 10 states away. Fortunately, I had a good friend at the time who was in cybersecurity, and she was able to track them down, find their address, find the address of their second home, because of course they had a second home, and I was able to serve them the papers. So I took them to court, and I had to find a really good lawyer in the state that they were in, and that was also very difficult. But because the amount of money was over the $5,000 limit for small claims court, I had to take them to civil court, and civil court wasn't allowed to do it over Zoom. So the lawyer went in on my behalf, and the first time they didn't show up and they had to reschedule it. And the second time was like a month later. God, these bugs are fucking everywhere. And that time they showed up, but they were totally unprepared. They were totally out of it, and they just completely failed. And the judge gave them an order to pay me back. And that was pretty cool. I mean, that was a victory. It felt great knowing that after 4 months of struggle, I was able to, at the age of 24, successfully take someone to court and win. But that was the easy part. Then comes collecting the money. And I can tell you that to this very day, I still have not seen more than $200 of that money. They have closed all their bank accounts. They refuse to get a job. They won't sell any of their assets. It's like they're living underground. They're stuffing their cash under mattresses so that they don't have to pay me, because their bank accounts will be garnished. So I literally had to pay $200 every time I did a bank scan to check if they had a bank account. We did that 2 or 3 times, realized that no, they did not have a bank account, and I just kind of gave up on that, and now I've got a lien on their real estate. So these 55-year-olds, I've got a lien on their real estate for $12,000, because that includes interest and lawyer fees. And fortunately, the interest will keep building and building. But God, who knows how long these people are going to live? Having a lien on their real estate is great, but I don't know when the hell I'm going to get my money. So you got that. And then you've got the idea of jobs and work. Now, I worked in this corporate setting in an office job, and it was in a very loose industry. They did not drug test me, but they did look over my social media stuff. And they didn't really try to police my political views as much, thank God, but they were policing my business buildup. I was trying to build up a personal brand around the business that I was starting through LinkedIn. And at that point, at the end of 2020, the vice president called me on the phone and says, "Hey, you got to stop with this business stuff, because we want people to put 110%, and you're inspiring people to go off and do other things." And you know what? I had to tell him, I was like, "Look, man, I get it, but I'm just not going to let you stifle the growth of my personal brand. It takes years to build, and I don't feel that it's worth it for me to agree to be silenced just to make you happy." And man, when I told my grandpa, my dad's dad, that I said that to this guy, he was so mad. He was like, "No, you have a good, stable job. You need to do whatever you can, say whatever you need to do to keep that job for as long as possible." But he doesn't get that these companies aren't loyal to us anymore. They don't provide a pathway to advancement. It's not 1965 anymore. And of course, Grandpa didn't support my business. He told me that I should quit and go get a job at McDonald's. It would be better than doing my business, which really hurt, because within like a year or two, I was making as much money as I would be working at McDonald's. So But anyway, he came around later on, a couple years later. Like literally the year he passed away, he was supportive of my business, and that was awesome. Ironically enough, my dad was supportive at first, and then around the time Grandpa started being supportive, then my dad was telling me that I should just go get a job at McDonald's. Needless to say, I don't really talk to him anymore. He's actually serving a pretty lengthy sentence in a prison in Central California. We used to mail letters back and forth until one day he said that to me over a letter when I was asking him for advice on a different thing. And instead, he took that as an opportunity to give me advice on my whole life in general, basically telling me that my business is a failure and that I should just give up. And I had really, really created this innovative product, this deck of cards. And he looked at it and just told me it was shit. So I don't talk to him anymore. The only family I have that's supportive is my grandma on my mom's side and my uncle on my dad's side. Grandpa on my mom's side died in 2018. My mom's severely mentally ill. She's more like having a bad roommate or a little sister that's a pain in the ass and constantly sabotaging me every step of the way of my life. But the point is, I'm done with having corporations police me. I don't want to be drug tested. I don't want people telling me what I can and can't put in my body and telling me what I have to put in my body. If you'll remember, back in 2021, there was that whole fiasco of, that thing. I won't consent to having chemicals injected into my body. Sorry, I want freedom. On top of that, you got the political thing. Everybody's all afraid of posting on social media, like making a video like this. They don't want to say their views. And they don't want to put themselves out there, not just out of fear of embarrassment, which I don't experience at all. I don't give a shit about that because I see life in a grander view. But either way, they don't want to do it because they're afraid of their employer finding out about it. Having an employer like that and being a content creator like this puts you at a really vulnerable position because it allows people to go and call whoever you work for and say, so-and-so said this. So they get rid of you, and then you're stuck without a livelihood. So I want to build something independent, something that doesn't have that vulnerability. And that's what I've been trying to do for the last 6 years. Then you've got everybody talking about retirement. When you reach your late 20s, they say, you should be saving for retirement. But you know what my view is on that? Somebody said it real good on Reddit the other day. I'll show a picture of it here. Because by the time people in my generation and the Zoomer generation reach the age of retirement, even if you have saved all that money is going to be so diminished in value by that point that you will actually probably have gotten more value from it investing it in other ways throughout your life than putting it in some retirement account. I barely make any money anyways. It's only been in the last year or so that I've actually been able to start building my bank account. The whole time before, I've had to reinvest everything back into the business. I've lost $28,000. It's gotten to the point where the IRS is getting suspicious that this is some kind of money laundering scheme. I won't have to pay taxes for quite a while because I've got $28,000 in tax write-offs that I can use for God knows how much longer. As I've made very clear before, I've spent 6 years working my ass off to try and achieve something with my life, to try and overcome my disadvantages, because I've had quite a few disadvantages. I've had some advantages, like my grandpa on my dad's side paid for my college. But in a lot of ways, college just isn't even necessary. The family I grew up with, full of the mentally ill, addicts, criminals, people who traumatized me when I was a kid, dragged me down every step of the way. My family hasn't really provided me opportunities or connections. What they provide is sources of misfortune and unfortunate events, distractions, hardships. I grew up out here in the woods of Northern California. It's a beautiful place, but I didn't actually have internet capable of viewing a YouTube video until I was 14 years old. Meanwhile, I had everyone around me in my life telling me that you have to put your all into school and school is everything and play sports and all this stuff. And otherwise, you're just a nobody loser. If I could go back to that point in my life, what I would be doing is getting a camera and starting a YouTube channel. I could have been a millionaire by now. I could have had my own house if I would have focused on growing an internet profile and building an online audience instead of wasting my time trying to achieve academic success. Now, I realize that if everybody tried to be an online influencer or a YouTuber, society absolutely would collapse. And that's probably what we're headed to because everyone wants to do that. No one wants to do the jobs that keep things running. And for good reason. You don't get paid enough. Women think that you're a loser. I mean, you have to have clout, money, fame, or be 6'6" for any woman to pay any attention to you. So what do you get from working a blue-collar job? Well, unless you're a tall guy, you just get walked all over by society and not appreciated. And for some people, that's enough. For me, I wanted to change the world. So I see all these young people, 20 years old, like these people on YouTube, these big YouTubers. Hell, even the recent example of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is a couple years older than me, but as I've heard on the news the last few days, he achieved so much in his short life. By the age of 21, he had his own successful thing and blah, blah, and he was famous. And he was. It's like by the time he was my age, he was wealthy and he was famous. And like, what am I? I worked as hard as he did, I'm telling you. I didn't get anywhere. So when I hear people praising someone, for achieving so much in their short life, all I can think of is, yeah, he got lucky. He made the right choice at the right time, happened to be in the right place, meet the right people, etc. Then I'm watching people like Gideon and Tyler Oliveira, and I think, no, there's no way, because like these are like multi-million-dollar media companies. Like these aren't even just YouTube channels. Like these people are big time, and they're using super advanced monetization techniques, and they've got massive teams working for them. How did they build that? Like who invested in it? Whose idea was all? There's no way that they're that much of geniuses to know how to do all those things from scratch. Like, I guess I'm not that smart because I thought I was smart. I went to school for business. I've spent the last 6 years learning new skills constantly. And I still would have to go through a training period to figure out a lot of the things that these guys have. And what do I find? These guys have to mention their age at some point. I just wish that they would shut up and not say their age. It's like they want to brag to everyone to show how amazing they are. Like in one of the videos, Tyler Oliveira says, yeah, I was born in the year 2000. And then someone asks Gideon, how old are you, bro? And he says, 25. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Really? Then you've got people that aren't even like big YouTubers, but I still feel competitive with. Like other people in my niche, the short guy, black pill niche, the doomers, either on TikTok or YouTube, young people that are like 20 years old that are really with it, even though I put 110% into my videos, I work my ass off on the thumbnails. I turn it into a science with hooks and rehooks and curiosity gaps. And I see people like this new guy, Great Tall Immortal. He just started his channel and his TikTok. And his first video, God, is probably at like 1,000 views now. You know how many views I got on my first video? I got like 5 views in a week. Like none of my videos got over 50 views for the first 2 months. Same thing with TikTok. I look over at his TikTok, first 5 videos, no viewership lower than 8,000. 2 of them are over 100,000. Like what the fuck? Like there is no way that his videos are that much better than mine. It makes me want to curse at God. Like, damn you, God, for putting me in this position where I work my ass off for years. I'm 10 years older than these people. I know far more than they do. And yet they just catapult straight to success while I watch myself turn 30 with nothing to show for it. When I see stuff like that, it makes me want to re-roll my life and hope that I get to be one of those people. I just want to start a new character because now I know that I don't have full control over where I go in life, how much I achieve, what the outcome of my hard work is. You can put as much hard work into your life as possible, but the ultimate outcome is determined by luck, God's will, and the universe. When someone blames all of their life circumstances on things that are outside their control instead of what's in their control, and they say that when you do that, you end up being not successful and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But you got to realize that that is the reality when you're in a situation like mine. People in this situation need to be validated. On top of all this, as I get older, I've got these health problems that are just getting worse and worse. On the positive end, I've still got good hair. I thought for sure that by the age of 29, I'd be going bald. I thought for sure that my grandma, who raised me like a mother, would be dead by now. I mean, we came close with grandma. If you look at my community post, there was a close call about a month ago. And that's part of the reason why I struggle so much in life with my mental health and everything, because she's like my mother. And if I lose her, I don't know what I'm going to do emotionally. I'm not emotionally prepared for that. I've already lost the man that raised me. So I basically essentially feel like an orphan at that point. And I know a lot of you guys probably have lost both of your parents earlier in life, but it sucks. It really sucks. But I have this problem where my breathing, it feels tight. It feels constrained. And I just feel this raw, tense feeling in my lungs. And I haven't smoked or vaped in years. Like I breathe nothing but pure air. And somehow I'm experiencing breathing issues that are so bad that they just sap the energy right out of me. I don't have the energy that I did 5 years ago, mainly because of depression and because of the breathing issue it takes so much energy to breathe each breath in and out. And I've spent months and months, like appointment after appointment, only for them to end up telling me that everything's normal and they can't figure out what it is and that it's all in my head. And if it's all in my head, I guess I'm completely fucked because it's just getting worse and worse and there's nothing I can do about it. Overall, I just feel like I'm out of steam. Now, a lot of you might relate to the isolation as you get in your later 20s. And a lot of people might have experienced this after COVID. Just the families across the board are just no longer as close. If you have family reunions and your family gets together for holidays and stuff, count yourself lucky, because in families like mine, everybody's spread all across the country. People are poor, they're suffering with health problems, they've got addictions, they've got jobs that make them work 80 hours a week. Nobody gets together anymore. So we're all alone here. Only family members within a 3-hour drive is my mom and my grandma. My mom doesn't really feel like a family member. Grandma, I could lose her any year now. Like any year, it could be our last Christmas. We live in this fire-prone area. We've been evacuated multiple times. And she's getting too old. She can't handle the stress of the evacuations anymore. And it's all piling on me as her cognition gets worse and worse. I have the stress of having to keep track of everything around the house, set priorities to make sure this property is maintained and that we're prepared for emergencies like that. And it's just on top of the business, on top of the YouTube channel, just this enormous, immense burden placed on my shoulders. On top of that, I haven't hung out with a friend in about 2 years. You might have 1 or 2 friends and think that's bad. Bro, I haven't hung out with a single friend in years. My friends are all gone. They've abandoned me for various reasons, and I have a video. It'll be linked in the description. The story of why all my friends left me, one after another. It's pretty sad, but a lot of you might be able to relate. And to be honest, I don't think it's my fault. I think it's on them. I have one good friend left, and he lives a whole state away. And on the West Coast, a state is like 5 or 6 states if you're from the East Coast. So not really feasible. He doesn't really come to visit anymore. He used to. So socially, things are dead. Relationship-wise, I've completely given up on asking girls out because it's exceedingly difficult to find a tall woman who likes a short guy. On top of that, I'm broke. Women expect you to pay for all the dates and pay for it. Not only that, they need a guy who has his own place so that when they go back to your place, they're not going back to your childhood room at your grandma's house. Had to switch positions here real quick due to the lighting, but I think it's important to talk about what my future plans are. It's to see if some of the more ambitious of you out there who can relate to spending your whole 20s working your butt off to achieve your dreams, how it would feel to be at this point and still be so far away from it, and how that might change your perspective and your path towards that. To be honest with you, if I can't succeed as a small business owner and or content creator, I don't want to go back to working a 9-to-5 job ever. Total respect to the people that keep our society running. Thank you. If you're able to do that and still live your life and be satisfied and maybe have a family, good for you. But after as much as I've worked and as hard as I've tried, with all the experience that I have too, running this business, doing sales, just everything, how humiliating it would be to, after all that, and seeing these 20-year-olds just catapult into success and start their businesses and just become millionaires off of selling to their audience, to see that and know that you tried and you failed and you're 30 years old and you're a loser. And that's why I'm still broke. That's why I haven't given up, because if I do give up, it's basically a death sentence because it means that I'm defeated. It's like, when the Japanese fail their families and feel shame. I mentioned at the beginning what my ultimate goal in life was. And since I was 15 years old, my goal in life was to start a business revolving around industrial hemp. Not smokable hemp, but industrial hemp, to help preserve the world economy while at the same time saving the environment. You got hemp composite materials that are lightweight, good for vehicles of all types, drones, etc. You've got hemp biofuel that would be far superior to electric shit because it can be grown and done all here. We wouldn't be reliant on those rare earth mineral batteries and stuff. There are so many things, hempcrete, but all that stuff is like pie in the sky. And I realized when I was in college that I would need $1 million minimum just to start the most basic operation. And that's when I got involved with the cannabis startup industry because I thought it would get me the ins and the connections I needed and whatnot. Well, that turned out to be a massive disappointment. So I started my own business in a much cheaper industry that allowed me to start with just $400. And that's what I built up for the last 6 years. I thought that would be my stepping stone into, okay, I'm going to use that to gain experience as a business owner. I'm going to save up a bunch of money, hire employees, etc., then hand that off to somebody to manage while I move on to the next venture. And by the age of 30, like when I was 24, I thought that by the age of 30, I would be there. And it has gone by so fast. And I wasn't just sitting around, twiddling my thumbs. I was going as hard as I could, sacrificing sleep, sacrificing days off, like barely playing any video games, not even doing anything that I enjoyed, sacrificing it all just on the altar of achieving my dreams, only for me to get no closer to that goal by the age of 30. So one of the things I realized that I'm going to impart this wisdom onto you, the younger generation, and you might already know this, but what I wish I would have done is instead of starting the business and then 5 years later, 6 years later, starting the YouTube channel, what I wish I would have done back in 2020 when we had the lockdowns of working from home is instead of starting the business, start a YouTube channel then so that I could spend the next 5 years building an audience. And then once I built that audience up, then start the business, because marketing is the most important thing when it comes to sales. That's just my philosophy, because especially if you're a sole entrepreneur, you have to have an audience to sell to. Like when I started that website, I was getting 100 likes on every LinkedIn post or whatever, but none of them bought the product. And I've come to realize that a place like YouTube is where you build up a much larger audience. And once you build up that much larger audience, there's a much higher likelihood that members of those audience are going to want to purchase your products, either because they genuinely want it or because they want to support you. This is why those young people who have their social media accounts take off, when they start their businesses, they immediately catapult to success. This is why when celebrities start their whiskey brands or their this and that it just immediately takes off. If a regular everyday person tried that, it would end up in failure, just like it did for me. I did things in the wrong order. But don't get it twisted. I'm not just here doing this for money. If you've seen my other videos, you would know that I have a genuine mission for this channel to validate the lived experiences of people that are suffering with a lack of recognition and acknowledgement of their disadvantages in life. And eventually, once I built that up enough, I can share my greater vision for what I want to achieve in life and why it would benefit the world as a whole, and how my audience can be a part of that, can be a part of something bigger and help be a part of something that's going to change history, then that is the ultimate mission of my channel. Now, you might look at all that and think, damn, that's a bit of a pipe dream, bro. You really think you're going to be able to do that? And to be honest with you, after what I've gone through the last 5 years or 6 years, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. I'm pretty damn pessimistic about it. And the wind is taken out of my sails. I'm all out of steam, and I'm keeping going because I know that if I don't, I'm basically dead. I'm accepting defeat, and I might as well. The pressure on my shoulders is immense, but the thought of knowing that I'm the one who has the ultimate control over my life is very comforting, and it allows me to ease off a lot of that pressure on a daily basis. So what's my advice for younger people who might have similar levels of ambition to me, or might just want to have a good life in general? And my advice is, anytime a thought comes into your head, any time of day or night, about ideas that you might have, if you might want to start building a YouTube channel or a TikTok page or whatever, and you want to come up with video ideas, anytime you think of something, put it in your phone notes. Because as much as I would have wanted to start my YouTube channel way back when I was 23, unfortunately, I didn't have even a fraction of the ideas built up that I did by this point last year. Because throughout the last 6 years of me running my business, I've had this idea in my head to start this channel. And every single time I had an idea, I wrote it down. And now I have 2,000 lines of ideas written in my phone notes that I can go off of to create content with. If I didn't start thinking about that until after I reached the age of 29, I would be even further behind. So in a way, I'm not as far behind as I think, because I've been preparing for this point for the last 6 years. So the other thing is like, don't listen to these gurus and these successful people who try to tell you that if you're not successful by a certain age, you just haven't tried hard enough. You didn't work hard. Or maybe you're just a bad person and the universe is punishing you. That is so cruel and just absolutely despicable. It's a despicable thing to say. Because honestly, CEOs and all those people, they don't work that hard. They work like 2 hours a day. The rest of the whole week, they just go to parties and drink and meet girls. Like they don't work hard. Give me a break. The janitor works harder than them. They're mostly just Nepo babies, honestly. So don't listen to those people. Don't let them get you down. Know that if you tried your hardest, and you probably worked harder than them. They just got lucky. Fuck those people. They don't know shit. They don't know your life. Don't listen to guys like Tony Robbins and shit like that. They're just trying to siphon even more money away from people who have had a rough time in life. People who, like me, are insecure about their lack of achievement and being told that it's all their fault. So, hey, buy this course and it'll help you figure everything out. And you'll only be successful if you pay me $1,500 for my special secret knowledge. They don't have secret knowledge. You already know what they know. You just don't realize that you do. All right. Thanks for listening. Subscribe and give this video some hype points if you know how to do that, because that will help with the impressions. Thank you.